His neighbors described him the same way, every single one of them. The nicest man on the street, always helpful, always smiling. He threw the best barbecues in the neighborhood. Children loved him. Politicians trusted him. The United States Secret Service gave him a security clearance. At the time, there were already 26 bodies beneath his house. His neighbors had no idea. Neither did anyone else.
Like and subscribe.
John Wayne Gacy was not supposed to be a monster. Monsters, we tell ourselves, are recognizable. They live alone. They make people uncomfortable. They exist at the edges. Gacy lived at 8213 West Summerdale Avenue in Norwood Park, a quiet suburb on the northwest side of Chicago. He owned a successful construction company called PDM Contractors. He threw elaborate neighborhood barbecues that his neighbors looked forward to all summer. Enormous affairs with food and music, and Gacy moving through the crowd, making sure everyone had enough to eat, making sure everyone was having a good time. He was active in the local Democratic Party. He organized events. He knew people. He was the kind of man that other men called when they needed something done, because he was the kind of man who got things done. And then there was Pogo. Pogo the Clown was a character Gacy had invented for himself. A painted face, a ruffled costume, balloon animals for children at birthday parties and charitable events. He had taught himself the craft. He performed for free. He said he loved to see children laugh. His neighbors adored him. His employees respected him. His community trusted him. And beneath his house, in a crawl space approximately 3 feet high, the bodies were accumulating. He was not at the edge of anything. He was at the center. Here is what makes the story of John Wayne Gacy genuinely unbearable once you understand it fully. The world had already seen him. In 1968, in Waterloo, Iowa, Gacy was convicted of sodomy against a teenage boy who worked for his business. The boy was 15 years old. Gacy had used the promise of employment to get him alone, and then used his physical size. Gacy was a large, imposing man, to ensure the boy could not leave. He was sentenced to 10 years in the Iowa State Reformatory for Men. He was a model prisoner. He joined every program available. He was cooperative, cheerful, well-liked by staff. A parole board reviewed his case after 18 months and decided he was no longer a threat. He was released, and he moved back to Chicago. His parole officer closed his case in 1971, citing good behavior and stable employment. In 1972, a teenage boy filed a complaint against Gacy in Chicago, alleging that Gacy had forced him into his car and assaulted him. The charges were dropped when the boy failed to appear in court. The Iowa conviction, a felony, a matter of public record, should have been visible to anyone who looked. The 1972 complaint should have prompted scrutiny. Neither did. Because Gacy looked like what a respectable man looked like. He employed people, he paid his taxes. He showed up at community events. He shook hands and remembered names and asked after people's families. The record said one thing, the face said another, and everyone chose to read the face. Between 1972 and 1978, John Wayne Gacy murdered at least 33 young men and boys in Cook County, Illinois. Most of them were teenagers. Most of them had names that meant something to someone. A mother who kept their school photograph on the refrigerator. A younger sibling who slept in the bunk below them. A girlfriend who spent months filling follow-up calls with a police department that had no answers. His name was John Butkovich. He was 17. He had worked for Gacy's construction company and argued with him over unpaid wages. He disappeared in July 1975. His parents contacted the police repeatedly over the following years. They were told there was nothing to investigate. His name was Gregory Godzik. He was 17. He worked for PDM contractors. He disappeared in December 1976. His family filed a missing persons report. It went nowhere. Most of them were lured under the pretense of work. The promise of cash was enough to get them into Gacy's car and then into his house on Summerdale Avenue. The method was consistent. The disposal was consistent. When the crawl space beneath the house filled beyond capacity, Gacy began disposing of bodies in the Des Plaines River. He continued throwing his neighborhood barbecues throughout and performing as Pogo the Clown. He continued his work in Democratic Party politics, rising to the position of precinct captain. In the spring of 1978, he stood next to Rosalynn Carter, the First Lady of the United States, and smiled for a photograph while wearing a Secret Service security clearance badge. The missing persons reports existed. The families had filed them, had followed up on them, and begged for investigations. The investigations were not looking at a man like John Wayne Gacy. In December 1978, a 15-year-old boy named Robert Peast went to speak to a contractor about a summer job. The contractor had been working at the pharmacy where Peast was employed. Peast told his mother he would be right back. He did not come back. His mother contacted the police. The police identified the contractor Robert Peast had gone to meet. His name was John Wayne Gacy. A detective ran Gacy's name through the system and found the 1968 Iowa conviction for sodomy against a minor. He obtained a search warrant for Gacy's property. Officers searched the house on Summerdale Avenue. They found a high school class ring that did not belong to Gacy. They found a receipt from the pharmacy where Peast had worked. They found a trapdoor in the floor of a closet. They did not open the trapdoor. They returned the warrant. They filed their report. They concluded there was insufficient evidence to hold Gacy. He was released and he went home. He was placed under surveillance, loose surveillance, a rotating team of officers watching the house from the street. Over the following days, Gacy invited the surveillance officers inside for coffee. He chatted with them, he made jokes. He was, by all accounts, pleasant company. On December 11, 1978, a different detective returned to Summerdale Avenue with a new warrant. This time, someone opened the trapdoor. The smell reached them before they reached the bottom. What they found beneath that house had been there for 6 years. "33 bodies were recovered from the crawl space and the Des Plaines River. 26 were found beneath the house. The remains were so numerous, so densely arranged in the confined space, that the excavation took weeks." Gacy confessed. He was tried in 1980. The defense argued insanity. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning a verdict of guilty on all 33 counts of murder. He was sentenced to death. He spent 14 years on death row painting clowns. His paintings sold at auctions. People collected them. Some still do. He was executed by lethal injection on May 10, 1994. His last words were, "Kiss my ass." The neighbors on Summerdale Avenue gave interviews in the weeks after the arrest. The interviews follow a pattern so consistent, it has become almost a cliché of true crime coverage. "He was the nicest man. You never would have known. He was always so helpful." Every one of these statements was true. That is what makes them so difficult to put down. John Wayne Gacy was helpful. He was friendly. He was generous with his time and his food and his attention. He was by every external measurement available to the people around him, a good neighbor. He was also, simultaneously, the most prolific serial killer in American history at the time of his arrest. Both of these things were true at the same time, in the same body, on the same street. The question his case leaves behind is not how a monster hides among people. It is something far more unsettling than that. It is whether the hiding was ever really necessary at all.
Like and subscribe.